and then we will. Good morning, everyone. Eric Ebersole, and I'm happy to see you all here today. This is a meeting of the Baltimore County House delegation on the 3rd of April. Wow, struggling a little bit here. On the 3rd of April, I'm pleased to have you all here. Today we have a guest. We sometimes go up the ladder a little bit when we find him. We have Congressman Mfume here today, and we're pleased to have him, and he's going to address us for a couple minutes. Sir, you have the floor.
Well, Mr. Chairman, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be with the delegation and to hear from the delegation, because I actually really want to try to, in these last couple of days and weeks, get a sense of where the delegation is and what it's pushing for and how I might be able to be helpful in that regard. But it's just good to see everybody. I've known so many on this call over the years that to have you all together like this is a pleasure for me. It's an opportunity for me. Scott Phillips, who I kind of came through the Congress with the first time around, has been an old friend. So it's good to see you, Scott. Alethea, Dana. I better not start calling names because I started this by calling Rick's name. See, this is how Rick always gets me into trouble. But it's just good to be with everybody. I want to just do a couple of things and mention a couple of things, and to most of all mention how much I really appreciate the leadership that all of you are bringing to different parts of the county. As you know, I don't represent the entire county, but I've got a good slither over on the west side and on the lower east side, and Turner Station and Dundalk, over on that side, that Johnny O and I have kind of said we are the Congress people for both the city and the county, and we work together in tandem in that regard. So a couple of quick things. You probably are already up to date on the matter regarding the bridge. And I bring that up because it's been 2 years, as we all know, and it's just taken a lot of effort. When the bridge went down, what you saw here in Maryland was absolute teamwork. Myself, as the member whose district the bridge was in, as well as the other members of the delegation, Democrats and Republicans, together working to try to find a way to get this done. The governor reported, as you know, that we are ahead of schedule slightly in terms of where the reconstruction is. And I saw just yesterday where another lawsuit has been settled against the company that owned the Dolly. But more than anything else, for me at least, and I hope that I can count on all of you to assist in this, is to really be stewards of the process to make sure there's not a slowdown or a backlog or something that pushes the opening date a year down the road or 2 years down the road. And that's why, for me at least, the way all of you have worked on this has been very, very supportive, and I'm very appreciative. And I know that I speak on behalf of the entire delegation when I say that to you. The other thing is that I've got a couple of quick concerns, and some of these will not sound that unfamiliar to you at all. I'm really concerned that the federal government continues to put unfunded mandates on cities and counties across this nation and on states, as if to say that states and counties and cities have the ability, with a limited amount of dollars, relatively speaking, to be able to do the things that they need. And yet we continue to see where the Congress is trying to push out legislation, pass legislation, put in place policy, things that are being mandated, and they want to have mandated in cities, towns, hamlets across this country without the necessary funding to go with that. That just can't happen because cities and counties and states don't have, as I said before, the ability to deal with a lot of this. There is another thing that concerns me on that same subject, and that is cost sharing. The federal government has to do more in that regard. We can't just spend, as we have, $35 billion in 5 weeks in Iran and then tell states, go find the money or go figure out how you're going to do what you have to do. We can't keep taxing people to death, and yet states find themselves in a precarious position because of where we are going on a national level, mandating things and not being willing to share cost and to pick up the responsibility and the burden. Those things concern me. I'm very much concerned about transportation in this country and the fact that every state has its own fund, but there are only so many things that you can do out of that fund, and the cost for maintenance of highways and bridges and roadways goes up every year. The amount of money coming from the federal government has not done that, except for the Build Back Better Act, that was the first thing in the last 20 years, and there's nothing after that. So I know that you wrestle with trying to figure out fiscally how to be responsible, how to make sure that your constituents and taxpayers feel like their dollars are being spent in a wise and prudent way, and how the responsibility falls really back on you to always have to explain that. So I talk about this a lot when I'm out around constituents and organizations and groups and policy folks, because you should not have to explain it over and over again. People have to start, I think, developing, particularly people who've got some skin in the game, and understanding that the work of state legislatures across the nation is not done solely by the legislature. It's done also when we are outside of that group or those groups pushing and affecting policy and finding a way to make sure that we raise the level of understanding so that people get a sense of what their states are up against and why it's so difficult in this time to be able to do the things fiscally that we want to do. We all know what's going on with gas prices, which are out of control. I don't know about you, but it cost me $110 just to fill up my tank last week. It's probably more now. We know what's going on with groceries and the way it's impacting the people that we all represent each week, with new costs going higher and higher and higher. We understand in a very real way what electricity rates are doing to us. And by the way, I want to commend those of you on this call who've been working on that issue here in the state to try to find a way to provide some relief. We really have to do that. As you know, I'm just preaching to the choir here. When you consider the fact that BG&E took down profits of $500 million last year alone, there's got to be two people in this dance. It can't just be the state and state legislators trying to find creative ways to drive down the costs and to get money back into the hands of constituents. It's got to be the power companies too, because that's an awful lot of profit to make in 1 year. So I don't want to ramble. I just want to make sure that this dialogue that we're having today, it's one that we continue. I hope that regularly, quite frankly. I know you'll be out of session soon, but whenever you want to try to make sure that we're encouraging each other in the delegation to do this, I'll be your cheerleader in that regard. In fact, I'm hoping that one day you'll have the entire delegation join this delegation in a call like this so we can share ideas and learn about the work that everybody is doing. What I'd like to do more than anything else, rather than to ramble, is to really try to react and respond, Mr. Chairman, to any questions, comments, or observations that people here may have. I'm going to, as I've said before, continue to work with each and every one of you. I work across party lines, as Rick Mixer will tell you. The money that we brought in to turn the station this past week and down in the Dundalk area was not a Democratic or Republican initiative. I got Democratic and Republican appropriators to understand the sense in providing the money, and they provided it, and we presented it. And so in many respects, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as we all know. And this notion of trying to find a way, even in the midst of a very politicized, partisan climate that we find ourselves in, people still want us to deliver as best we can. And so I believe people over politics. That's been my mantra since I first got elected to office many, many years ago. It's something that, for me at least, it's personal, and it's very poignant in the sense that if we, I think, keep that in front of us, it helps to be our North Star and our guiding light as we go forward. So you didn't get on this call to listen to me ramble without notes, but I want to thank the chairman for allowing me the opportunity. And you guys are all at work. I'm getting ready to go to work. So I will take as much time as I have, much time as you need, to try to talk about whatever it is that the delegation would like to bring up today. In other words, I don't have anywhere to go right now. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to yield back to you so that you can guide us as to how you think we ought to proceed.
Thank you, sir. And if you have a large screen, you'll see that there are 4 metaphoric hands raised right now to speak to you. I will say that we appreciate your sensitivity to the pressures that have been placed, particularly on this state, by the changes at the federal level, jobs being taken away. We're proud that we have passed a balanced budget. I'm going to let one of my people from appropriations weigh in and say what the surplus is that we have, that we expect out of that. I believe it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, either Delegate Forbes or Delegate McCaskill. I don't have the number in my head. I don't know if they do or not. I see Delegate McCaskill hunting around. If you come up with that, but we're very proud because that's very hard work for us and caused some painful decisions to be made, and we're making them. We don't. We can say that we're being hurt by decisions made at the federal level. Certainly not by you, but we also need to then just we need to come up with solutions for the people of Maryland, and we appreciate your sensitivity to it in your remarks.
By the way, we haven't learned that balanced budget trick yet. Not since 1994 when Bill Clinton was in office. So
that's true.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
We don't have a choice. All right, let's go to the Vice Chair, Delegate Pasteur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Congressman Fumi. I'm certainly surprised you didn't tell folks that I used to walk you to school. Okay, don't anybody believe that? I did not.
He's got a story on everyone. It's
everyone.
Yeah, no, that's his story. But it is good to see you, and thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your comments. I want to throw in something that is big, but we in the middle of so many financial crises that cover everyone, we sort of skip over this. And this is about one, what I call the demise of the Department of Education. Because everything that you just named, yes, will impact all of us, but what it does and the way it's doing it is really going to impact generations, because when we impact our children, you can't have a quick break and then think, okay, everything is better and our children and our futures will be better. So the state has to take on a number of things, particularly around special education, special needs, food, the levels. There's a myriad of levels. I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what folks are doing, because someone has to be processing that creates a very different and severe crisis when we start peeling off on our babies, our children, and it becomes generational. So what are people saying in your neck of the woods, if you will, about how states are going to be supported? Because I consider this a crisis of its own. How are states going to be supported, and what do you see happening in the near future so that we don't do irreparable damage or damage for a very long time, maybe decades?
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. I actually think that we've already done quite a bit of irreparable damage,
Yeah.
unfortunately, in the last 14 months that we can document. And it's unfortunate in the sense because a lot of people don't realize right now it's sort of a silent crash because it's not in the news every day and foreign affairs are and fiscal matters are, that people have not willingly, but sort of taken their eyes off of what's been happening to education, and the irreparable damage that has taken place continues to grow every day. I was the first person to speak out against the appointment of this current secretary coming out of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation with no real background in educational management or fiscal management within institutions that are educational, and no real sense of the discipline. You can do that sometimes, and sometimes it works out. In this case, it's not working out. And what we've seen from the beginning was a complete retrenchment early on of hundreds and almost several thousand people, I should say, in the department that are in DC and around the country working for the Department of Education. When you retrench people like that in those amounts, that's a brain trust that goes out the door. And so no matter how you may hire the next week or the next month, people don't walk in with the same understanding, appreciation, or with the same kind of history of what it takes to make sure we have good educational opportunities and oversight in institutions in this country. The demolition of the Pell Grant, the decisions that states in and of themselves ought to take care of their educational needs and construction and stuff like that. Many of the policies affecting disabled students and many of the opportunities I think that were always available at different levels throughout the Department of Education just are no longer there. It's a matter that we've tried to address in the appropriations process, but we only have so many votes, as you know. You can count votes. You either have enough to vote and win, or you don't, and you take a step back. And so we've had in the appropriation process some small wins. I'm not an appropriator dealing with education, but many of my colleagues are. But we've had a lot of disappointments and things that we've had to move back on, or just basic matters that were voted down in committee before they ever got to the floor. Many of those were protective in nature. And when I say protective, I'm talking about protecting the institution as we have known the Department of Education. So the real thing right now is to resist, to push back, to continue to use the legal process. We filed jointly probably about 125 lawsuits. When I say we, I'm talking about different members of the House and Senate working with groups like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and others who have it's ACLU, I shouldn't say also, who have the ability and the capacity to bring lawsuits. The Supreme Court ruled early last year that members of Congress cannot bring a lawsuit because we don't have, as they say, standing in the matter. So we've had to go outside of the Congress to work with independent 501c3 groups who have attorneys to file these things, to push back, to slow down on the process of degradation that we've seen taking place in the Department of Education. Out of those 100 and plus, we probably won about 80%, another 10% we've won stays on, and those stays are still being litigated in court. But those are the things that we have at our disposal, unfortunately. And then the other thing that we have tried to take advantage of is the court of public opinion, because there are enough parents and educators out there that have continued to voice concern and have continued to suggest over and over again that the Department of Education must be on firm footing. That court of public opinion has done a great deal, quite frankly, just to get people again to look over at education, which a lot of people have not been looking at because it hasn't been a sexy issue, but to get them to look at it and to start asking the same questions so that they become the advocates that our children need as they go through this process.
Thank you so much, Congressman, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Delegate Sheila Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Congressman. It's great to have you here. I'm so pleased to still be represented by you in Congress. And so one of the things that has been, and you asked at the beginning if there are particular things that you can help with, or and so one of the things that has concerned me for a long, long time is the red line. And I am, grateful to Governor Moore for reviving that, but I don't know what the possibilities are in terms of federal funding for that. And there also was an article, I think it was last week, that there was some consideration of changing it from rail to bus rapid transit. And I just feel really strongly that that would not be the right move, particularly for Woodlawn in my district. Bus rapid transit is a fine way if you're looking just at getting people from point A to point B, but it does not give the same economic development benefits, transit-oriented development that we really need in Woodlawn. We have been putting a lot into trying to revitalize the Woodlawn area, and even though the red line would be years out before it's actually built, it would really benefit Woodlawn and encourage that kind of transit-oriented development and economic development, both near Security Square Mall and also in the greater Woodlawn area. So I just wanted to ask, to the extent that you can support either, federal funding or helping to ensure that this continues to be planned as rail, even if it takes a little longer. I just wanted to raise that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate Roof, and thank you for your work. And I look forward to seeing you in one of the 4th of July parades again this year in Woodlawn or in Catonsville. Couple of quick things. We all remember what happened when the decision was made at the state level by Governor Hogan not to move forward with the Red Line. There was an immediate proposal to come up with a system of bus routes, high-speed bus routes that would compensate, and people rejected that right away and said that that wouldn't work. And so the fight continued to get funding for the Red Line. That really didn't start to take hold until about 2022. And it was part of what was the Build Back Better Act. The major surface transportation aspect of it included money for the Red Line concept, not the project, the concept. Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, and I met a lot of times on this, along with other members of our delegation here on the Senate level and in the House, to try to figure out how we shape it. And we were working on 2 things at the time, to be quite frank: funding for Red Line and funding for the highway that goes nowhere, which is the middle of West Baltimore that runs straight out of the city into the county. Both of those were major projects that we considered to be priorities. We thought that things were going to move along just fine. We got $2 million in a planning grant for the highway to nowhere, another $2 million in a planning grant operation for the Red Line to be able to go in and make the argument again based on the research as to why it was needed, particularly with respect to the greater Woodlawn area. Then came the election. Things started slowing down in the 6 months leading up to the election, because that's just what the process does. Nobody wants to make a real move until they see where things are going to be. And then, of course, Democrats lost the election. And as a result of that, there was no more discussion at all on the transportation side about funding. If anything, there was criticism because the new price tag was $6 billion by then. And the people who were against it said, we don't have that kind of money. The state doesn't have that kind of money. True. And the federal government does not see it as a priority. Unfortunately, that's true also. And so we've not seen anything close to funding any kind of real project in transportation outside of the Frederick Douglass Tunnel, which was already underway and with bids out on the street, and the process started. But other transportation projects, there's just not any movement at all. And quite frankly, people don't have a lot of interest if it doesn't affect them. And so the argument that when I say we, our delegation continues to make both in the Senate and in the House, is that this has a real economic impact, that running a bus line parallel to wherever the route was going to be is not going to be enough, that it's not sustainable, that we've got to find a way to not keep looking at that as an alternative, because the more we do, the less we think we need a Red Line. Some of the criticism now is that the Purple Line is overcost and overrun by about 400%. And people will say, yeah, see, we don't need another project like that because the state, which has to pick up the costs, if the feds don't, can't afford to do it. So there's a lot of resistance out there. It's the best word to use right now. I agree with you that this is a significant project. I've agreed since 2014 when this all came about. And like you, and I'm sure others, I was saddened to learn that we were only going to go with the Purple Line, but the Purple Line has proved to be a boondoggle in many respects when it comes to financing. And the Red Line just never got life again, even though it had some life back 3 years ago and looked like we were going to be moving forward with it. So I support it. I can tell you that the delegation supports it. The problem right now is finding a way to get the appropriation in and to get it passed through committee, which, as you know, these are very partisan times, and that's been very, very difficult. So we've got a couple of our members like Glenn Ivey and Steny on appropriations that continue to push for that and other transportation projects. And I wish I could give you some better news.
No, I well understand Oh, I well understand the situation, and thank you for your work, Congressman. I just want to keep that on the burner.
Good,
Thank you so much.
good. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Delegate Ruth. We're going to go to Delegate Long, please.
Hi, Congressman.
Hey, Bob.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for asking. It's a good morning.
It is a great morning. I just want to share with you, I'm boots on the ground in my district, listening about the red line. And I'm just being very front. I want to be in the front. People down here do not want the red line because of the problems it would cause. We've looked at all different scenarios, how this would affect our district, and it would be very it would affect our district badly. I know there was talk of the red line coming into Bayview and stopping there. I don't think we'd have a real problem with that if it's feasible and it's also necessary. And the only thing is, if it comes from Bayview any further into our district, I think you're going to have a big fight on your hands. I'm going to be honest with you. And I don't want to see a lot of money wasted on a project that won't come to fruition. We actually had a meeting down at Trade Point Atlantic back, I think it was, I don't remember what year it was, but anyway, Pat Young was there. I think several of us were still there to bring a bus from the west side over to Trade Point Atlantic. They would have come across the Key Bridge right in Trade Point Atlantic. That would have opened up more job opportunities on the west side. And I thought it was a great idea because of the flexibility, and they could tailor it to meet the needs of the people that are riding it. That being said, I would highly recommend that we get this bridge done as quickly as possible, as you well know, and let's get this bus route open back up so people can continue to use that bus route to get into Trade Point Atlantic. But again, people in my district will fight you tooth and nail about that red line if it comes down any further than Bayview. Just being honest with you. I don't know if I'll be in office when that happens, but just put this on the record that I said it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bob. I don't know that it was going to go beyond Bayview. I guess the best thing right now is that there is no red line. So it's an academic conversation. And until we're able to find out if there's going to be money on the federal level to make that happen, I hear your concern and I hear Delegate Ruth's passion. And I guess the key is in the middle there and to figure out what happens, because at the end of the day, people have got to get to employment opportunities if we're talking about growing the economy. And when they can't get to those opportunities, things don't move very well at all. And so I believe that, again, it's an academic conversation right now because there is no red line, there is no funding, and there is no plan. But as those things come together, I've just never heard of it going beyond Bayview. This is kind of new to me right now. So I hear you loud and clear, and you are on the record, obviously. But it's a conversation that has no real what's the word I'm looking for? Reality, in the sense that we don't have the money and the money's not there. The plan is there, the hope and the desire is there. And the concern, obviously, from you is there. But, we're having a conversation about something that just does not exist right now. This conversation, by the way, has been going on, as I said, since 2014. There have been so many iterations of what we can do, what we should do, what we ought to do. And we're still right where we essentially were, unfortunately.
Well, hopefully we'll get the bridge open back up and we can continue the bus route from the west side into Trade Point Atlantic, and that way opens up job opportunities for people on the west side. And
well,
again,
it's not just the west side. People coming to Trade Point are coming from everywhere around.
Right.
Yeah. And I've been working with the people at Trade Point. The bridge is going to be restored. I mean, the Baltimore Bridge Act was my bill, and every member of the delegation signed on it. And we were fortunate as a team to get it done, which is why I sort of preceded my formal remarks by saying this morning how important it is to keep it on schedule. That's the main thing, because we've seen what's happened to 695 and 95 as a result of not having that bridge, the congestion, the backups that take place. You can't take hazmat material through the tunnel, so everybody's looking for a workaround, and that workaround has caused, for a lot of people who are just trying to get to a job, period, severe backups. So we want to get it done, but we want to make sure that we get it done on time. that we don't have a 1 year or 2 year or 3 year delay. It's important for all of us to keep our eye on this bridge.
Thank you, Delegate Long. Thank you for your answer. We're going to go to Delegate Bendari next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Congressman Fume, for your continued leadership, for your strong support to our higher education, including our one Morgan State University. You have many admirers there. And the question has been asked on the education and TOD type of thing, but I also want to thank you for introducing the Affordable Inhaler and Nebulizer Act at lowering the cost of asthma medication and treatments, I believe, for a condition like COPD, and for consistently pushing to protect access to care and prevent healthcare costs from skyrocketing, especially for our most vulnerable communities. And you understand the pain, Congressman, that our constituents are feeling on a day-to-day basis. What words of wisdom would you offer to families navigating the skyrocketing cost now? I receive a call almost every week. Unfortunately, this is the situation we are living. Any word of wisdom, Congressman there?
Well, first of all, thank you, Delegate Bernadari, for your comments regarding the Inhaler and Nebulizer Act. Most people don't realize that the greater Baltimore area, and I'm talking about Baltimore City and Baltimore County, have the highest rates of asthma in the country and some of the highest rates of child asthma in the country. We think about COPD, but we tend not to think about some of the things that are related to that. And I've always been somebody that believed that if we don't watch our health will not watch out for us. And so because we suffer disproportionately in this greater Baltimore area with cancer, breast cancer and prostate cancer, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, hypertension, HIV, full-blown AIDS, all the things that work as comorbidities that drive down lifestyles. If we are not paying attention to the health and the aspect of preventive care, we're going to continue to see mortality rates go in the direction that they're going in now. People living fewer years and having a quality of life that's not as good as the generation before them. So I've made this, for me at least, a priority since I've been in office, and I'm glad that you mentioned it and that people are paying attention to where we are with this. Now, the question was, what do we say to people who are trying to navigate these high costs for prescription drugs and for other things? I just think that right now, to the extent that we can become even more educated consumers, we have to. And to some extent, we've got to, I think, talk more about forming co-ops where we purchase in mass the ability to drive down prices for certain medications. But more importantly, I just keep telling people, keep banging away and hammering away at those of us in the United States Congress, because we have a responsibility to make sure that what we talk about being affordable is really affordable. You saw there were some victories not too long ago, a couple of years back, with respect to prescription drugs, victories that we have pointed to over and over again with respect to the way people are able to manage their Medicaid and Medicare. There needs to be changes, obviously, in my opinion, to both programs so that constituents and consumers are able to navigate it. It's more than a notion. It's just unbelievable. When you go into a CVS or a Rite Aid or some other place and you see long lines at the prescription counter, because we all, to some extent, have reason to be there for medication. But I talk to people in those lines and they shake their heads and they just say, this is crazy. I can't afford this. I can't afford it. And they're not shy about talking about it or raising hell about it because it's a real issue in our society. So to the extent that all of you can help me and others on the federal level and that we can help you on the state level, continue to remind people to be advocates over and over again for healthcare and for costs that are associated with healthcare. It helps out until we are able to get to another point. And my belief is we are going to get to another point. I mean, this used to be an issue where people who were getting up in age were concerned about it. And so it wasn't top of the chart. Now everybody's concerned because everybody realizes that whether you are a 65-year-old retiree or whether you're a young mother just trying to find a way to have medications for your child or your children, these things are all tied together. And the federal role, again, I keep saying this, if we're going to spend $35 billion in 5 weeks on a war without being attacked, and then say we don't have enough money to drive down the cost of healthcare. It's unbelievable how much that kind of money would go toward making sure that people have greater access and affordability with respect to drugs and with respect to formal hospital care and other things. It's a matter of priorities. And I will say it over and over and over again. It's not Black, it's not white, it's not Latino. It's an issue of priorities. Because when a child cries in the middle of the night, that child is not crying in color. The child is crying in pain. And oftentimes the pain is associated with some sort of malady, some sort of disorder, or sometimes just hunger. I don't want to beat my drum on this any more than that, except to say that health is the greatest issue that we face domestically in this country because it affects all of us. And when you look again at mortality and morbidity tables and what's happening to the quote quality of life, we are going backwards in that regard. Even though all these great drug commercials are on TV, affordability more than anything else rules the day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good question. You touched a nerve. You had some important stuff to go to there. Excellent. Delegate Metzger, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Congressman. It's truly a joy to appreciate working with your unwavering support and partnership. I call it a partnership. I appreciate that. Three little questions and thoughts maybe. One, I was thinking the other day about the Key Bridge. Do you think if we maybe brought the Army Corps of Engineers would expedite the process?
Well, yes, the Army Corps of Engineers, as you know, they were the boots on the ground when this went down.
Right.
And they worked relentlessly with the divers and others who were trying to find a way to get a sense structurally of just how bad the damage was underwater. And that Corps of Engineers created the go-to plan on how to get out of the situation, both structurally and in terms of the environment. Colonel Pinchason, who led the Corps during those first 12 months, was excellent. She just got involved and never, ever stopped. And so the Corps is on standby, Rick. I didn't know. I guess I should let you know that they are there whenever we need them as we go through this process. And having their help again will help us, obviously. I think what slowed things down, not in terms of the construction, but in terms of the process, has been all these lawsuits, which are now being settled. And as I mentioned a minute ago, there was just another one settled yesterday, so that construction and the engineering and everything else can stay on track. I didn't know how difficult of a process it was to go into the water, pull up the moorings, break up the concrete, try to find a way to remove all of that, and then go back in months later after you've done the environmental cleanup to make sure that you start doing the same thing, putting in the moorings and laying the concrete. It's a long process. I take my hat off to engineers every time I run into one because we just take that skill for granted, but it's a real skill. And the Army Corps of Engineers, they replicated the best and I think make all of us proud because of what they do and how they do it. As you know, Rick, we're working with them on flooding in the Dundalk and Turner Station area. And so the money that I presented 2 weeks ago to those communities to help them deal with that is money that is also going to help the Army Corps of Engineers, even though they don't need it, but it helps to create a situation where they can come in and provide expertise, guidance. So yes, long answer, but yes, I agree with you that the Corps has been vital since the beginning and will be vital all the way up until the end because, they've got to sign off on this thing. It's not just the governor or somebody else. They've got to make sure that from an engineering perspective, once the bridge is open, that it will stay open for many, many years. And it's a different kind of span that's being produce is not what went up in the late 70s. I remember that construction over and over again because, I grew up in Turner Station, and this is a different span of a bridge. It's got a different life expectancy. And let's hope that the Army Corps of Engineer ears gives it a go-ahead so that we can make sure that it does open and cut the ribbon and have people going back and forth. Right now, it's a wreck. It's a wreck for Dundalk and Turner Station because those homes are starting now to get structural cracks in them because of the big 16-wheelers that are running through their neighborhood.
Yes.
And without belaboring the point, I started my conversation with that because that's just very, very important, I think, to me, to you, and to the region. And I would hope that to the extent that the county delegation in unison can continue to kind of stay on top of this with us, that would be very, very welcome.
Thank you. And I will add, we got some additional funds for Day Village as well as the Turner Station flood thing. So I appreciate that. One of the things that I was mentioning was Fort Howard. Is there any talk of how that's being revived, or we haven't heard a thing? And of course, the North Point Government Center. It's been 12 years since we started talking about that. Haven't heard a thing about that. So just out of curiosity, if you know anything about that.
I don't know anything about the North Point situation. I guess I would defer to the governor's office. I don't know what their plans are, the perspective at the planning department. I can tell you with respect to Fort Howard, it's a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month situation. Remember, they didn't even have post office boxes out there when they took the post office down.
Yep.
And I worked then with Johnny O, who was county executive, and worked with the governor to make sure that we could get the federal aid into Fort Howard without it being co-opted and going somewhere else. And we were able to do that. We created the situation that replaced the post office there. People have their individual boxes. We work closely with the Fort Howard Community Association. And let me just be real honest here, Rick. My district did not initially include Fort Howard. I knew it was there, but it was never a part of the 7th district until the last redistricting.
Right.
And so when that happened, I made a point to go out there and to sit down and to get to know everybody in that community and start working with them. And we've had a great working relationship since then.
I know that. That's why I
Okay.
brought it to your attention. So I appreciate the partnership again, and looking forward to seeing you at the governor's signing when we do the Henrietta Lacks Commission bill.
Thank you, Delegate Metzger. You're getting all of them in there. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I love you.
Got to go to Delegate Alethea McCaskill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Congressman. It is a real delight to see you this Good Friday morning. So happy Good Friday to you. I know that for all the work that you continue to do, that my uncle Quentin Lawson will be so proud of his little brother as you do what you do. Delegate Cheryl Pastor had mentioned the Department of Education, and then I heard my delegation chair mention about our budget. All I would say is, as far as fiscally and balancing the budget here in Maryland, one thing we have to have is folks who are willing, and it can be done. We've had bipartisan support in getting the budget balanced while still making sure that we take care of everyone in Maryland, but doing it in a very responsible way from every parts of our great state. So I'm so glad to have the cooperation we have from leadership and within the body to get that done. We have a $250 million surplus as we stand. And just like last session, we had a surplus, and then turns of the tides, if you will, at the federal government. But we have worked it out over here for now. And so my concern is, right about now, we have students who are applying for our delegate scholarships and trying to figure out affordability for higher education. I believe maybe a few weeks ago, the Department of Education has turned over federal student loan debt over to the Department of Treasury. And I'm quite concerned about that because I'm not sure about their level of expertise of what that looks like, how all of this will, if there is real concern there. So I'm just wondering if you can give us words of comfort as that transition happens, or if there is a pause or any legalities that may be happening there. I think a lot of times with our students, they have a lot of confusion of what to do and how to do it when it comes to their federal student loan debt.
Thank you very much, Alethea, and thank you for calling Quentin's name. As you know, I have had so much respect for him, and still think about him and miss him. We used to be partners on a number of different projects, and it's just good when somebody calls his name. So I appreciate that. On the federal level, I just believe that there is not a full appreciation of education and what it means to this nation. One of the reasons why we are able to talk about our strengths, our expertise, our breakthroughs as a nation has been because we've always made a point to make sure that people had an opportunity to become educated, and out of that opportunity had a chance to put their ideas out in the world of ideas. And one thing would lead to another. And there was always an American breakthrough in everything, and all the way up to AI, which is taking place today. In the absence of that, we are just treading water. And to take student loan debt and to turn it over to the Department of the Treasury is okay. However, if the Department of Treasury does not have a real sense of how that debt came about, why it is important to do away with it, and how do you find a way to restructure it, then it will never be restructured. And that lump of debt will always be there as an albatross around the necks of people who fight every day for education. And I don't always want to prejudge, in this case, the Department of the Treasury, but my sense is that that urgency is not there, that understanding is not there, and a willingness to restructure the debt and find a way to make sure that people are able to give back what they're obligated to give back, but at the same time not be overburdened. I don't think that's there either. And I know it sounds grim, but it is a grim situation. And again, most Americans are not paying attention to what is and is not happening with education because we're distracted.
Yeah.
We've got all these other things that pop up every 3 or 4 minutes. You know, we live in news cycles, and something as important as that, particularly to the foundation of this nation and its history, does not get the attention it deserves. So I kind of shuddered and made a statement and went on the floor of the House and spoke out against this whole notion when I first heard about it. But it's difficult finding colleagues out there that feel the same way about education. They believe that it's important, that the debt is important, that finding a way to make sure in terms of higher education that we're just as proactive as we are at K through 12, but they don't see themselves necessarily as warriors in that fight. And if they don't see themselves that way, it's difficult for many of us to get them to push back. So we're going to just keep doing what we're doing, raising the issue over and over again, to the extent that we can file a lawsuit, litigation, to prevent some transfers or to put requirements on transfers such as this. We'll try to do that. As I said before, we've been winning about 80% of the litigation. Another 10% is in the process now of having been stayed, and we've lost a few things. But until the numbers change, and the direction and the thinking, we're going to be pretty much where we are right now in a defensive posture. It doesn't mean that we are losing or that we're giving up. It just means that you have to fight harder with one hand tied behind your back. And that's why advocates continue to bring up education, because they are fighting with one arm behind their back. And they want to remind people that education and that them and that young people throughout this country still need that help. We, as you know better than me, education and the process of learning has been accelerated so much today. People are talking about AI and what that means and what it doesn't mean and the dangers in it. We kind of just shot straight into the future. 10 years ago, artificial intelligence was just something that we talked about. Now, children, school children, and children who are out of school and into colleges and universities as young adults everybody's paying attention to it. It's going to restructure the workforce. It's probably going to reduce almost 50% of the jobs that we have in this country. When you look at the engineering that takes place as a result of that and what's going on and not going on in the STEM fields, if we're not ready, we're going to get run over by this. And one of the ways we get ready, I think, is to have a government that provides opportunity and a chance for people, wherever they are in their stage of life, to become smarter and to become more aware. And for those who are in the dawning of their life, elementary students and those persons, it's our responsibility because they can't fight for themselves. So long story short, I have very serious problems in terms of the way the Department of Education is handing off collection and this and that and the other. I have a very serious problem at their devaluation of some of the programs that have meant so much, like Head Start and others in this country.
Yeah.
And if I sound a little angry, I am a little angry because if it were not for educational opportunity, I would not be on this call with you today. And God only knows where I would be. And everybody deserves that, regardless of the black, white, Latino in this country. Everybody deserves that opportunity at least. And this is the federal government's role, in my opinion, to make that happen. That's why we pay taxes. We don't pay taxes because we like to, because we do it because we want the government to be responsive and to understand that it's better to spend $35 billion in 1 week on education than it is on an armed conflict where we're putting our young men and women in harm's way.
My. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Congressman, for that. You know, given our little ones at the child care level, that extra lift to make sure that they can receive all that they need to receive on an education level is one of my main goals. I'm relentless about it, but at the other end, making sure that our students with higher education or those who even may be our elders who want to come back, I don't want to have folks to be discouraged on the fiscal side. So I just continue to look forward to working with you and making, and I know that you'll do all you can do to make sure that we figure out how to reverse the dismantling of the Department of Education. So thank you, and have a good week. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Delegate McCaskill. I appreciate
All
it. Happy.
I see two more questions, and we're going to try to
right.
be a little bit cognizant of your time. I will say that because we have no other business, people are asking lots of questions, but I think that's also because it's you, and I'm pleased by that. Delegate Ross, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. Congressman, good morning, and thank you for being here. And I, too, just want to congratulate, thank you, pat you on the back for all that you do, trying to do in DC. We know that you're fighting the good fight, and you don't look like what you've been through. So keep it up. We're here for you. I wanted to say that, well, first, thank you for mentioning what's happening in Turner Station. And you're right. I was going to say this, but I won't because you already talked about the impact on the communities there. Nobody's talking about the infrastructural impact to those homes and the cracks and all the things they're experiencing right now. So thank you for mentioning that. And the funding for the water flooding, that has been an issue forever. So it's so nice to see you and there and the money they have. I hope it will address the issue comprehensively because that's been the thing. It's been band-aids, and so hopefully that will be enough money to really get it fully resolved. But a quick question and then a comment. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the status of the bridge and the funding, and it's just been delay after delay, and of course it's delayed again. And I'm glad we're talking about it because I worry the less we talk about it, the more likely it's going to fall off the schedule is going to slip. So is the federal delegation, are you all getting like an update, periodic update, quarterly or monthly, on the status of the bridge and the situation right now? We all know, of course, that the funding is impacted by the material costs, and some of these requirements like they continue to come from the administration. I'm worried that we have a president who has already said that he will use this as leverage. The threat is out there and it hasn't gone away. I've never seen him rescind that. So that threat feels alive and well to me, that we'll wake up tomorrow and be blindsided by this administration's lack of full 150% committal to this project. So I think we have to be quarterly or however often regularly updated about that. We don't have some new agreement with him. We have what we have from President Biden, and that's great. But he said he doesn't feel beholden to that. So can you just speak to how often you all get updated, the Maryland delegation in particular, I'm sorry, and are able to monitor, know that if they're going to pull away with the funding or put some other requirement on the bridge or that they want that might impact this schedule, that we can immediately know, we can give input and pivot or look for other means to try to help fund this if we need to do it. That's my question. Before you answer, my comment was we talked about Trade Point, and I just wanted to say thank you for your comment. It is also an East Side issue, very much so. And we have commuters who cannot get to employment. And I think you may have also mentioned, which is very true, it's not just the commuters, it's also materials that we need to get out to that area. And I did just want to shout out my senator, Carl Jackson, and the legislative team, Delegate Bandari, Delegate Nick Allen, and myself. We did just secure money in the state budget for a commuter bus route to connect the commuters in our district in White Marsh area to Trade Point Atlantic, and that should go live on July 1st. And I know Senator Jackson has been really working at that. So that's just good news I wanted to put out there as we talk about getting commuters around the county to Trade Point. Still a lot to do, but that's just like another thing we can hold up as work in progress. Thank you again, Congressman. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Please give my best to Carl. I've got a big place in my heart for him. I've watched him come into office and just really shine. I'm just very, very proud of him over there in the Senate. Couple of quick things. And by the way, I read about the latest thing in terms of getting people around that portion of the county and the work that he has done working with all three of his delegates and making sure that that happens. On the bridge, I can tell you that every 90 days there is an update. And that update is presented to the Transportation Infrastructure Committee of the Congress. And we, meaning the delegation, are monitoring every update that takes place because we don't want something to happen that we're not aware of. And so far, it's been pretty much as it should be. There were a couple of bumps and bruises because of the back and forth between the president and the governor. But fortunately, on the transportation side, with respect to this, we're working it. And when I say we, I'm talking about every member of our delegation, including Andy Harris. It's important to all of us. And, as I said, it's in my district. So I've got a special place in my heart to make sure that this thing happens the way it should indeed happen. The chief Republican appropriator, Tom Cole of Oklahoma, and the chief Democratic appropriator, Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut, have been working hand in glove on this. There is something that you should know that refutes the argument, or at least challenges the argument that anybody can stop this at any time, is the fact that precedent exists in this country. When the bridge went down in Minneapolis in 2008, it was established then that the United States Congress, working with appropriators, would find a way to cover the full cost of the bridge. We did that in 2008. So that is the precedent that exists. So when Joe Biden proclaimed that morning after the bridge went down, we were all standing out there, that the federal government was going to take care of 100% of the rebuilding of the bridge. He wasn't just talking out of his head. That's the precedent that exists in this country. And it existed prior to Minneapolis because of the way that the funding just was appropriated. But then it was established in 2008. So I want you to just know that as background. And that's the legal construct that we are using to push forward here. The administration has backed off of the inferences that it had somehow the ability and the power to stop the funding, and has deferred, as this administration or any administration should, to the committees of oversight. And the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, as well as the Appropriations Committee, are people who know and believe and who understand this. In fact, Tom Cole, the Republican chair called me that morning and said, "Hey, I know you're getting ready to call me, but don't worry about it. I understand where we are with this. Uh, I represent Oklahoma, you represent Baltimore, but we realize that this is important. It's going to take place." And to his credit, he fought tooth and nail, and Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut on our side of the aisle fought tooth and nail. So I feel pretty good about it. You know, the cost went from $1.2 billion straight up, but the Appropriations Committee has been able to find a way to make sure that that is absorbed and that we are just trying to move forward, understanding precedent, but also understanding that this bridge is more than just a bridge that goes from east to west. It affects the Port of Baltimore, where thousands and thousands of jobs are at stake. It affects the ability for us to get in and out of there. A number of automobiles every year that are being sold in this country. In fact, we're the second leading port in that regard. It recognizes the fact that all farm equipment, by and large at least, comes through the Port of Baltimore. And so the John Deere tractors and the other things that are going in and out of this country, but mean jobs to people, are protected by that. I went down there and I stood with just about 300 or 400 longshoremen in the days that followed that to assure them that it's going to be difficult for a while, but that we would find a way to protect them and protect their jobs, which we were able to do. And so many people on that side of the county live and work around the port and are particularly dependent on the port for employment. So it's a big picture item that should never be minimalized. And I tell people that all the time. This is more than just a bridge. This is about a lifestyle and need and an economic engine for our country that we just can't let go and fall off and get behind schedule. So everybody's heard that in the Congress 100 times. And that's why you don't see any resistance right now. We're just not trying to call any attention to it because one of my colleagues might just get the bright idea that that's the way to get some votes in their district, and they will stand up and rail against it. And we don't want that at all. So I hear you loud and clear on it. We're moving forward on it, Delegate Ross. And thank you for mentioning that portion of the county and the work that all of you are doing there in conjunction with Senator Jackson. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Congressman. That's good. I appreciate your updates and assurances, and I think that's a good play, not to cast a light on this too much, so right. But I am very grateful for the focus. It is a national. This bridge has national, if not international, implications. So I'm glad to hear that folks are on the same page down there about this. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And by the way, I think each of us would say how much we like our senator and our district right down the line. I know I like my Charles Sidnor a great deal. So we don't want to sell any of them short. They're all doing a lot of good work. So I appreciate
They are doing a lot of good work.
I appreciate Senator Jackson got a shout out, but I would do the same. We're going to be cognizant of everyone's time here, but we have my favorite bookend. Always with a great question. We're going to end with a question from Delegate Phillips. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here, Congressman, my friend. So I want to do a deja vu moment. When we met, I was doing a fellowship, and my focus on the Hill was small and minority businesses. And you were, I think, the chair or one of the ranking members of the Small Business Committee. And I won't say how long ago that was. It'll age both of us. In Maryland, this has been one of the drivers of Black wealth, quite frankly. The DBE program, the MBE program, et cetera. The administration has kind of created some upheaval in the disadvantaged business entity program. And now the program is on pause. They have really put the weight of kind of restructuring the program on the states. And it's an interesting scenario, one that I've been working with this administration on. But the history is Maryland is the home agency for certifying disadvantaged business entities of about 20 to 25% nationwide. Approximately 45,000 firms are in the Disadvantaged Business Entity Program, but somewhere between 9 and 11,000 were certified here in Maryland. So we have, and many of them are not resident in Maryland, but because of Maryland's history in this, they're certified here. And so I've been working with the administration on trying to figure out how do we assist them so that they can get these firms recertified so that they can restart this program. And let me tell you why I'm really concerned about that. We just spent a lot of time talking about the Francis Scott Key Bridge. That bridge is now probably in the $4 billion range. There are no goals that can be placed on that bridge and the construction that's taking place because of the program being halted. I think about the Douglas Tunnel. I think about the interchanges on 695. I mean, this is a real concern because it impacts, many of these firms are employing hundreds of people. And if their livelihood goes away, that's going to be really problematic down the road. So I'd like you to kind of talk about what you see, because the other piece in all of this, and you mentioned the lawsuits, is that we have been, and nationally, whether it's the ACLU, NAACP, and other, the states and attorney generals have been fairly successful, as you said, with these lawsuits. But the administration tends, it's like, okay, you got a stop sign, and they just keep running right through it, even when the judges tell them they shouldn't. And so I'm interested about what Congress is saying about that. And then the last thing I'm going to ask you, Congressman, and then I'm going to stop, is a theoretical question. Assuming in the midterms, there's a significant change and it changes the power in Washington, then what then happens with all of the things that have been dismantled, like education, or changed drastically, like SBA, or the Civil Rights Commission? What do you foresee in that? I know I gave you a lot, Congressman, but you're my friend, and I know you like all knowing. So I'm just curious. I want to kind of get a perspective.
Well, Scott, thank you. And I should say thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations again on your ascension as chair of the Legislative Black Caucus. I appreciate that. It was good news to read. Congratulations. You covered a lot, and I'll try to respond to a lot of it because you're a very cogent thinker, and I appreciate the way that you've sort of systematically laid out what is the reality and also what is the challenge that's before us as it relates to minority business enterprise. And when we say minority business enterprise, you and I know that that also includes women-owned businesses, veterans-owned businesses, and it's kind of lumped together like that so that people just hear the word minority and assume that that's all that these things are working for, but they're working for a lot of different constituent groups. It's interesting that here in Maryland, not only are we the sort of clearinghouse, but we're also the historical marker for programs like this. Had it not been for Congressman, the late Congressman Perrin J. Mitchell, who insisted over and over again that there ought to be at least some sharing of the opportunity and sharing of the availability of business to do business, we probably would be miles beyond where we are going backwards. It was Perrin that put in place many of the things that we refer to now, whether it's the minority business enterprise or the 8A program. And there have been challenges over the years, the Adirond challenge, the Croson challenge in Virginia. And there will be challenges for as long as people think that other people should not have the same opportunity, because it's been painted in a way that says, oh, they have a disproportionate advantage. And so therefore we ought to do away with it. Now, interestingly enough, there was a lawsuit filed yesterday against the Congressional Black Caucus spouses who have an organization where they award a scholarship, not with government money, but with their own private money, to young Black kids who are trying to find a way to intern on the Hill. And the premise is that it's a disadvantage for everybody else. And in that instance, because these are private dollars, it makes you wonder, can the government or the courts tell me how to spend my own private money if I'm putting it in a pool as a donation to help somebody get an education? That's on one side. The other side is government funds, which is where the biggest battle is right now, and the efforts by so many people to do away with, quote, diversity, inclusion, and help me, DEI.
Yeah, DEI. Yep.
Um, I just find this very interesting because if you have a pie and everybody contributes to the pie, and when it comes time to slice up the pie, you tell one group, you just can't have a slice of this because if I give you a slice, it's unfair advantage to everybody else. Okay. But then when you look at the appropriation of the funds, Scott, as you know, 90% of all the ingredients and 90% in this case of all the money that's in that pie is going in the other direction. What's wrong with the 10% being set up so that businesses can compete to find a way to win a contract, not be given, but to win a contract, to employ people in the community, to create a circular flow of income as a result of that, and to cause the economy to grow? I've never understood the reverse logic on that, but that's where we are right now. And so there are going to continue to be lawsuits in this regard, unfortunately, and it's not just going to be against small Black disadvantaged businesses. It's going to be against women's businesses, veterans businesses, and the others that are part and parcel of that basket. When you look at the bridge, I think the only thing at this point that can ensure that there is participation in the construction and operation of the bridge, I think that has to come from the legislature or the governor and be ready for the challenge from the federal government. But we've got to at least make the argument that there's got to be greater opportunities for opportunity in that regard. We're at $4 billion and going up. I think it's going to be about $6 billion before it's over. That's a lot of opportunity and a lot of money. The Defense Department, which is the largest portion of our budget, $900 billion, used to have a program where at least 8 to 10% has been set aside for businesses that are minority owned or women owned or veterans owned to compete. And you would think $900 billion, that's a lot of money. And so, yes, but that's a lot of opportunity for businesses who otherwise would not be able to do that because there are issues that regard bonding. You know, if you've got to find a way, if you're going after a big contract, to show that you've got bonding, okay, that you've got to have financial background, and financial institutions are very slow to give that sign off and that credibility. And so it means you're always fighting up the hill to get where you have to go. And I don't want to sound like I'm advocating that people should be given something. No, just given the opportunity to compete on an even playing field. And an even playing field is not necessarily what people will say, well, that's a set aside. No, that's you're competing against others like yourself to do what you have to do. And then you win or you lose based on the merits of what you're able to do as a business. But we're in a situation, as you know, and as you've said, that these things are vanishing. They're vanishing. They're vanishing. If they continue to vanish, then the opportunity goes away with it. And the number of persons who are able to find a way to compete and to grow and to give back to our economy is not at the same pace as it once was. So I think more than anything else, we've got to continue to advocate over and over and over again that we're not asking for anything at all other than a chance to compete. In the state of Maryland, I know there was, and I guess there still is, a set-aside program on contracts through the state government where 10 to 15% of those have to be set up and set aside for minority businesses to compete with. But again, it's that pie, because when you look at the rest of the pie, that 90%, there's nothing happening there at all. I mean, that's all business doing business with business as business normally has taken place. And it's not creating necessarily opportunities for others to get involved. I think it's difficult, for me at least, for many of my white colleagues in the Congress to understand the argument, because they have come to believe that, well, everything is equal and everybody can compete equally. But that discounts the fact that there's still a lot of racism in our society, still a lot of sexism in our society. And I believe that racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, all that stuff is wrong and we have to call it out. But if you don't, it will continue to exist. And as long as it exists, we have to have a countermeasure to make sure that people who are taxpayers have an opportunity and a right to assume that the great American breadbasket is something that they can compete in and live in and work with and benefit from. But we only do that by creating opportunities, not shrinking opportunities. And I've been really heartened by the number of veterans organizations that have come out in support of making sure that these efforts are protected, the number of women organizations, obviously the number of minority groups and others. But it's a struggle. It's an ideological struggle more than anything else, because if you've got the power and you've got the purse and you've got the predisposition, then you're going to be able to do a lot of things you can do, particularly if you also have the votes. And that's where we are. You know better than I. You wrestle every day with this whole issue of trying to find a way to pass bills and make things better and to add on amendments. But that's where we are, Scott. And I'm just glad you raised it. I think the more we talk about it, the more we will talk about it in our society. The less we talk about it, it's just going to go away.
Yeah, you're muted, Delegate Phillips.
I was going to say, what do you think about this idea of the midterms, and should there be a change? How do we address all of the things that have been dismantled?
I'm sorry, I forgot that part of it. That's what happens when you ask 6-part questions.
I'm sorry.
He needs to give you a little list that you can work off of.
Well, the midterms are going to be very interesting. If you are looking at all the polls, everybody's predicting that there's going to be a shift in the majority. But I just think that we're too far out right now to assume that's going to be the case. You know better than I that 3 months in politics is like 30 years.
Yeah.
Things just can change every day and go in the opposite direction. So I try to wait until I'm closer to something to get a real sense of it. However, having said that, I feel better than I would have felt if things were going in another direction. If there is a flipping of the House, I should say, you're going to see a number of things that probably will happen, but not the least of which will be an effort working across the aisle, if we can get a few people on that side to join us, to undo some of the harsh things that have taken place that have hurt people. I can't say it any other way. There are a lot of people who are hurt out here who need to be addressed. And undoing some of the mandates that are in place and have been put in place through executive order and other things will be a priority. Now, the one thing about executive orders is that the only thing that can undo an executive order is another executive order. So I assume just as President Trump came in and undid a lot of President Biden's executive orders, whenever that day comes, when there's a Democrat in the White House, that will take place also. But that's not in this election this year. This is all, as you know, congressional, both House and Senate. So what we'll see will be an effort legislatively to reverse, soften, or undo totally some of the things that go to the heart and soul of people and their pain in this country. You'll probably also see a number of persons being subpoenaed to be on the record to testify who refuse to testify now. As some of you know, we got together. I'm on the senior member of the Oversight Committee. We voted, Democrats and Republicans, to subpoena Pam Bondi because we thought that she was just turning the Justice Department into the Just ICE Department with no real sensitivity to American citizens, let alone immigrants. and we served her with the subpoena. I think the president did not want her under oath talking to the United States Congress, particularly Oversight Committee, which has a Republican chair, I might add. But that's the case, and I think that if there was a uneasiness with her, that kind of hastened his decision to let her go. I don't think it was much more than that. People said, well, she didn't handle the Epstein thing correctly. Now, she's still been around. They say, well, she didn't go after his enemies. So she went after them. I think more than anything else, he did not want her on the record in a situation where lying to Congress could cause her to be arrested, or telling the truth to Congress could cause some problems for others in the Justice Department or the administration. So you'll see subpoenas going out like that to try to get on the record factual information. I mean, it's difficult when some secretaries just feel like they don't have to come before the Congress, or they can come and take their own shots at legitimately elected senators and representatives because they don't want to answer questions, or they assume that they will get pardoned if they do. We don't operate like that, never did, and we never will. And I think to the extent that common sense prevails, you're going to see a common sense effort to kind of pull us off of the course that we are on right now, undo some of the things that we believe are hurting people. Those are the priority matters right now, like education and the Department of Education, which we were talking about earlier. Other than that, Scott, there's going to be a lot of viewers on Fox, MSNBC, and CNN who are going to make all the money by having this go on and on in discussions night after night, 24/7. But the real work has to be in the streets and in the communities, which is, again, why I said what I said when I got on this call with you. Thank you for what you do to tell the truth all over the districts that you represent, and for being there to defend people who can't defend themselves. A lot of people feel defenseless right now in this nation. They feel like nobody's speaking on behalf of them. They're feeling that if they say something, they're going to be called out. They look at many of us who are under police guard right now, day in and day out outside of our homes, and wonder if that can happen with an elected official, what will happen with me? So they don't speak up and they don't speak out, and they assume that they are by themselves. And again, it's things like this No Kings Rally that says to a lot of them in every nook and corner of the county and of the state that you're not alone, that there are other people who are upset, that there are other people who love our republic, that there are other people who want to find a sensible way to work together and to not have everything come down to a partisan fight. And I think that empowers them to believe, okay, I don't have to give up, because everything that I hope for will come into existence if I continue to resist and fight back and resist and support the people who are fighting for me.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you for being a statesman, the orator, and the representative of all of your constituents, and really trying to find balance, whether it's in Turner Station or in Randallstown. I really appreciate you, my friend, truly. So
Thank you.
Keep up the good fight. We need you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Congressman, for being here. Thank you for I will say that the fact that we didn't have any business really let you, we got what I would call a myriad of topics. Appreciate your honesty, and you complimented us on our service. I think we would do exactly the same to you. And I appreciate the breadth of time you gave us this morning and the commentary.
It's not even a thanks due, Mr. Chairman. I think that this is what I'm supposed to do. And I will do it as long as anybody wants to listen. But I take this role and this job very seriously. I have all my life. And, I just believe that the more we can talk and have communication and disagree and talk some more, the closer we are getting to a consensus, because at the end of the day, that's what guides us as a nation, finding a consensus. We campaign in poetry, but we govern in prose. And it is that prose, which is the work that all of you do. And thank God I can say that I do along with you. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And cheers to you. Thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate your time. To the rest of the delegation, we have no legislative business today, so this will bring us to the conclusion of our meeting today. And we'll see you on the floor in about a half an hour or so. Thank you all so much, and thank you again,
Thank you.
Congressman.